Welcome back to Saltwater Podcast, bringing you the best in poetry, spoken word, arts and culture. Featuring some heavy hitters in the world of art and social change, Saltwater Podcast aims to emulate the intimate conversation that happens within friends while introducing its audience to a cohort of vibrant talent. Featuring new episodes every 2 weeks and hosted by me, Lindsay Price, we are delighted to bring you some of the most exciting artists in the Northwest and beyond. This podcast was launched purely from a crowdfunder, so I mean it from the bottom of my heart when I say we have you, the audience, to thank. Be sure to let us know what you think. Thank you for being here for this episode, and enjoy. Hello, welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. So a few messages before we get started with today's episode. Thank you so much for sticking with me in my mic-free times as well. It's hugely appreciated. And yeah, we are a little bit behind getting this episode out this week because we had some problems with the mirrors, but that is all fixed. So if you haven't listened already, please go and show her video or her audio some love. We get into some really great conversations around publishing, around activism, and around longevity in the arts. Plus, Amira is such a great storyteller as well. So yeah, we are celebrating Felix Mufti's episode today. I would strongly recommend listening to this episode twice. And I'm not just saying that to get more views or anything like that, but just there's a lot of topics in there that are quite meaty and are going to take a bit of time to wrap your head around. Me and Felix talk all things reclaim pride, all things defund the police. We talk about queer liberation and radical authenticity. We talk about the prison system and about some of the projects he's got on the go as well. So I really recommend listening to this in stages or repeating the process. Even I was picking up new pieces of information when I was editing it earlier on as well. So yeah. So Felix Mufti is a Liverpool-based, incredible person, basically. He is a poet, a theatre maker. He's the founder of the theatre company Transcend Theatre. He's an activist and general just chaos causer to the Liverpool area. And I have a feeling that his career is really just only at the beginning. So whether you find him go-go dancing on stage at your favourite gay bar, whether you find him rallying the troops at a protest he's organised, or whether you see him wearing a balaclava and stiletto nails, spitting bars on stage as part of his vampy alter ego Saint Juicy, Felix is very much a well-rounded character, and I think you're really going to get a lot out of today's episode. Be sure to show him some love on Instagram at Felix Mufti, and keep an eye out for his future endeavours as well. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode, and I'll speak to you all very soon. Hi, welcome back to Saltwater Podcast, bringing you the best in poetry, spoken word, arts and culture. I am so excited today to have with me one of my favourite people, aka Felix Mufti, aka Saint Juicy. Felix is a wonderful poet, activist, theatre maker, professional chaos causer, and just general nuisance and nightmare to the Liverpool community. But I'm so happy that you're here. Felix, how are you?
Oh, I'm good. It's lovely to be here with you, Lindsay.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast today. I've gone for like an extra long session than normal because you talk and I talk.
I loved it. It's my job. All I do is talk.
So I'm happy. Thank you so much. Before we get into any questions, Felix is actually going to kick us off with a poem. So I'm going to hand it over to you. Tell us what you're going to read.
So this is the start of my poetry collection, Necromantic, which basically just explores the idea of me being in love with dangerous things, situations and people. And this is the start of it. And it goes, how are you doing? Winter's a brewing. Do you fancy a spliff? A cup of tea? I know round this time of year you miss my body heat. I know round this time of year you still wonder how I'm dead warm, but I've still got cold feet. I miss your imprint on my mattress. Been a while since I showed you what I'm listening to. Me daily mix couldn't be more different. Been a while since I showed you my new tricks. New places have given me a different rhythm. I've had me tits chopped off as well. Now I don't know, I think I am. I still search me binder in the mornings, but wouldn't you after 7 years? After all these years, do you think of me? Said you'll always think of me when you make your early hours toast and tea. No, you hear me saying I'm sweet enough. No, you know I am. Sugar in your mouth on the kitchen counter. Says you can't wait, you need me on the kitchen counter. Said you found yourself inside me. Well, I'm not sure I was lying when I said no one's ever been this deep. Do you mourn for the person you could have been? Because I stared their dead corpse in the mirror for all them years. It taught me everything I need to know about how to breathe. God bless me, Mars womb. Bless me with always feeling like I have a point to prove. Bless me with the autonomy of my body. Taught me it's only important how I want me. And I spent that time alone, choked up in decaying rooms, mess layer in the floor, but let the big light in the hallway spill through the cracks in the door. Splintered wood, hands reaching out, trying to find a forever in my fingertips. I am not a product of my environment. The environment is toxic, doing everything to get out of it. I am not a product of my environment. I left to meet in hospital scran. It took me so long to forget the taste of it. But every time the dark cast spells, I've learnt healing ones to whisper all night. You might hear me reciting them sometimes, but they work best under moonlight. In my past life, they call me one of those romantics, but in this one, I'm just unemployed and paranoid. But with my pen, I'm necromantic. The way I bring my death back to life, I write along the lines, the ones he carved with his pocket knife. He said, babe, you're not just main character energy. You're the author of the whole fucking book. Well, I used to just write songs, but I could never write a good enough hook. Every line I colour with meaning, even if it goes over your head. Every word I say to you, please believe it. Rewind, listen back when you're in bed. I've fell in and out of love with every person I've pretended to be. And one day, I watched the sunrise and realised my shadow was no longer following me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love like trying to kick off with a poem because I feel like it just sets people up so well to explaining like what it is that you write.
Yeah, because it can be quite hard to explain because sometimes when I'm like, people meet me and I'm like dead Scouse and I'm all like, yeah. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I write poems. I think people can be confused like with with the idea of poetry and what they have in their heads and then the idea of me being a poet.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't seem like cohesive to them, but then when they actually hear my poetry and it's like the storytelling and the rhythm aspects that I like of it, I think it makes more sense when they see it.
There's so many different elements at play as well because you've got storytelling and then you've got like your poetry has like a very romantic feel to it, even if you're talking about concepts that aren't necessarily romantic.
Exactly.
You know?
That's why I call it necromantic. You know what I mean? It's like I am a romantic, but I love these like dangerous situations, these ideas. It's like what I've been exposed to my whole entire life. Like, you know, we can only write about what we know at the end of the day. And like, so yeah, I do like romanticize these crazy situations because when you're in these crazy situations, they are romanticized and that's why they leave such a big impact on you.
Yeah. And I think there's definitely something to be said for being in a situation and then thinking to yourself, oh, this is going to make a good poem. Like,
Sometimes,
the silver lining.
Literally, sometimes I do things I'm like, I've just done that to write a poem about it, haven't I? I'm low on content, need to cause some chaos.
Needed to cause some chaos. I resonate with that a lot. For people who are watching and maybe if this is the first time they've seen you do poetry, aside from this one, like how would you like to categorize what it is that you write about, the kind of topics?
Well, my poetry is about things I've seen. It's about the experiences that I've lived around me. Mainly growing up Scouse, I'd say more than anything. You know, I'm a person with a very intersectional reality. You know, I'm trans, I'm gay, I'm a person of colour, but the experiences that shape my art and what I want to talk about isn't usually necessarily anything to do with that. Usually them conversations that I have around that aren't conversations that I've necessarily ignited myself, unless it's how I can use certain privileges I have to make it better for the people. But like what shapes my poetry is the Scouseness of it. And I guess it does tie in with this idea of queer and language and like just being like unapologetically Scouse, unapologetically me. I think when I first started writing poetry, I was kind of writing what I thought people wanted to hear, what was digestible for people. I started writing about my transness. I started writing about the trauma. But then I thought, that's not what I'm passionate about. They're not the memories that I see in my head. They're not the memories I think in my head. For me, my poems and me trying to tell my memories in the most feasible way possible for people to understand who've
Yeah.
never seen the things I have.
I think writing about emotional memory can be so universal for people sometimes. And then on the Scouse note as well, like there is something so important in writing about place, and Scouse culture is an entire world in and of itself, and there's so many layers and nuances to explore, and I think it's really important that people lean into Scouseness through art, because it's not represented outside the city as much as it could be.
It's true.
So I think it's really important that we strengthen that cultural tie in a way, because it is a culture essentially.
It's a full culture, and you know, I work down in London a lot now, and I'll be in these rooms, and it'll be the only time I'll be in a room full of trans people, but I'll never feel more lonely a lot of the time, and you, that might sound very oxymoronic to people, but I'll never feel more lonely, because them people who are down in London and work with me, they won't understand half the barriers that I've faced to be in that room. The odds of me being in that room, me being working class, me being from a very working class place, me having a lot of working class experience because of what I've been through and the people around me. A lot of the people I'm working with, although they may be trans, they don't have that. They don't see that. And because a lot of the working class trans people haven't made it into the industry or made it into this idea of public influence or whatever that I may hold. And it's hard. Like I was saying to you last night, wasn't I? Because I'm doing some work at the Barbican, and you know, they were like, oh, do you want a coffee? And it's me trying to, like, you know, be as nice and easy as possible. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll just have a coffee, like, you know, anything. Expect them to come back with some polystyrene cup. And they come back with a big Pret a Manger. What's it called?
Pret a Manger.
Close enough. But they come back with a big Pret a Manger order. And I'm thinking, this one order that yous have just got nonchalantly is twice what my mum earned when I was growing up.
Yeah.
That amount that you've just spent could help my mate, you know, get to job opportunities, get to job interviews, you know, get to school, whatever they wanted to do. They didn't realise, like, even eat, that money could help someone eat for 3 weeks. You know what I mean? Like I it's that idea of privilege and like the intersectionality of privilege, like, and like the Scouse is like, we have to affirm ourselves in these places a lot of the time, because people hear my accent and they already have their preconceived judgment of me. Yeah. Without, no matter what I've said.
Like a story, a narrative is projected onto you based purely from like the intonations of your voice. Someone thinks that they know your upbringing, your status in life.
Exactly. And you know, I'll say something, they'll think it's funny, and they'll be laughing because, you know, oh yeah, Scouse, yeah, we all know Scouse are funny because we are. And if a comedian doesn't come to Liverpool on a tour, that's because they're not funny, and that's just facts. And you know, yeah, people expect that of me. I can make people laugh. People expect that of me. But if I say something intellectual, if I say something wise, people know that I don't come from an education background. You know, I've practically never been to school, and like. But like they expect like this certain persona of me, whether they realise it or not. And when I'm like having deep conversations with people, they're like, oh, I didn't realise you were like this. And I'm like, because I'm Scouse. Because I'm Scouse.
And it boils down to people's ideas of like what an academic looks like. And it's like, you can still be flamboyant and full of personality and culture and sass and still have something intelligent and worthy to say.
At the end of the day, how were subjects created? How was English created? How were these languages how were these subjects we study created? How was like these developments in science done? They were by people living their lives and realising that something was missing. Something was missing. People who create these medicines, we need these medicines because something is missing. People who create these verbs, we need a way to categorise these words because something is missing. Something is missing, and they're the subjects we study in school. But in life right now, a lot is missing. There is a lot that has been left by austerity. There is a lot that has been left by the colonial enforcers of taking away queerness from cultures. There is a lot missing. So there needs to be people who move away from this idea of an educational background and an academic background, but are actually creating education and academia. So don't even know the fucking word for it. Within themselves, you know what I mean? Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah.
Oh, sound.
Yeah, go for it.
Good. But you know what I mean? Like like we need to like when people are like, oh, you like this, and I'm like, no, we have to create these molds because the system is broken.
Yeah,
the system is broken, and that's what I mean when I say my Scouseness shapes my work more than anything else. It has made me realize how much the system is broken my entire life, because of my experiences and the people around me, because of seeing what it's like growing up poor, because of seeing what it's like to see these people failed by the curriculum, these really smart, intelligent, great, incredible people being failed by the curriculum, being failed by the systems or the youth centre, the institutions, and that's what shapes my work, and it makes me be able to create work that is accessible and relatable to people in a lot of different ways. But that is what shapes it at the end of the day. And a lot of the time that space isn't held for us in these big institutions because they're the ones that are enforcing it. So.
I think it's really important for institutions that think that they're engaging people from like particular demographics to actually look at the practice of how they're, because there's so many small things that you can get wrong in that. Yeah. Take us back a little bit as well, actually, because I feel like you've done a few podcasts, and I think the purpose of wanting this to be a bit longer and more in depth was to ask you questions that maybe you haven't been asked before, or to go under the surface a little bit. And you're still young now, but like take us back through like growing up. Like, where did you grow up? Whereabouts? What was it like? Like give us a sense of like what that was.
So I grew up in like an estate in Torquay. Went to school there. I just thought it was, honestly, when I was growing up, like I knew I couldn't go to certain places on my own. I knew that there was people I should stay away from, but I enjoyed growing up on the estate. There was such a sense of community. Everyone always looked after each other. I remember we were the first ones to get a computer, and I remember everyone coming around and playing the computer and being like, oh my God, it's a computer. Do you know what I mean? And like playing Club Penguin, and we have like them really precious memories, like getting my dad to like do the pizza parlor and Club Penguin because he was like good at it. You know what I mean? Like we would all made up like, and like we all like, them scooters that would like hurt your ankles and everything. Like I always and I'll always have them like amazing memories and like of growing up on that estate, but also seeing people being poor, people not having money, people like really struggling. But that was when we tell working class stories, a lot of the time people focus on the pain, but you will never meet like happier, funnier, more full of life people than on them estates. And I've seen it not just when I was growing up, saw it when I was getting older and when I was meeting more people. Like, so that's like where I kind of grew up, but I didn't really realize that wasn't normal until I went to secondary school, and I went to a school that was private 2 years before I joined, and it was very still in that private school way of thinking. It was very not safe for working class people. And that was the first time I really realised a class divide. Because we didn't get that in my primary school. Because there was people from Torquay, there was people from Egbert, there was people from everywhere. But at the same time, everyone just got on, and we didn't understand, because
when you're younger as well, it's not as apparent.
It's not because class isn't something that is like internal, it's external.
It's a construct.
It's a construct, exactly, and it's impossible to really define. You know what I mean? Like, because it's a construct that's enforced on people and categorized, but it's quite impossible to categorize class. But anyway, I think the first time I started realizing was when I was in secondary school, and I was like, people have money. Like, I'd never seen money before. I had family that lived in other countries that had money, and we'd go over to there and they'd spoil us and for the weekend, and it'd be amazing because my family are Pakistani and Maltese, and that was when I started being like, wow, like these people have like driveways, and like their dads work in London and are like bankers, and like they I didn't realize that like people had money. Like, I always thought there was rich people and there was poor people. You know what I mean? I never really understood that that middle ground.
And like rich people, something like you just don't associate with because they're far away.
And I never see them.
Yeah.
And then when I started seeing them, I got really isolated, and I was quite quiet when I was growing up, believe it or not. And I was always just writing, like, you know, I rewrote A Christmas Carol when I was like 7. I think it was better. Scored Another Christmas Story.
Already sold amazing. On the name, like slightly better.
Another Christmas Story, like, come on, you know. And then how I guess my creative journey started was when I started secondary school, and I was really isolated, and I didn't feel like there was anyone who, because that was the first time as well that I realised, I always knew I was a person of colour, but I didn't realise how white people were. You know, I was hearing people say stuff like, you know, oh, the P-word shop and stuff, like, just like casually. People would never say that when I was growing up, but like, and I'd be like, whoa, you know what I mean? Like, whoa, like I'd never really seen that. I'd always, like, you know, I'd never been around that. Like, I'd never been around so many white people, basically. And you know, my mum's white, but like we were always with my dad's family, and like my nanu Rashid, he was one of the leaders of the Toxic Uprisings. You know, it's always been ingrained into me, like this like reality of like
the
racism,
sense of like oppression as well.
Yeah, and the sense of oppression and the understanding of it, but also like knowing that you have to surround yourself by people who understand. And I'd never really had that before. And then when I started being exposed to all these people saying stuff, I went, whoa. And yeah, I didn't really have any friends, but then I realized I was trans, and yeah, that's a different podcast that I've done many times. And if you want to listen to that story, you can go onto BBC Three, Transitioning Teens, and you can listen to it there. But anyway, so then I started going to this trans youth group, Gyro, who do amazing work. And for the first time, I was like, okay, here's my community. Here's people who accept me. Here's people who love me, because I didn't get that when I came out in school. People were awful. People didn't understand. But anyway, so I had that community, and then I started going like out to town, like, and you know, I'd start like putting clothes in my backpack and getting changed from my uniform, going into town. So people maybe thought I was a bit older or whatever, and I just didn't look dead little in my school uniform. And then that's when I started like meeting all the emos that I go to St. John's with. And I think this is where I really started becoming like an artist. Like, because for a bit before that, when I used to watch you, before I kind of found that community, I found my community in YouTube, and I wrote like a Dan and Phil fan fiction, and it was like the #1 like most read on Wattpad. But then my dad found it, and it was just shame, so I deleted it. So I'd always kind of had that like artistic flair of writing.
Didn't you say that was like where your first Instagram account was? Like,
yeah, and that's why people are like, oh, you have followers on Instagram. Like, I only have followers because I used to be a Dan and Phil account. Half of them are
it was providing content that they wanted to see at the time.
Literally, I had the @name fan, like PHAN, so people would just find it. I know. So I'd really had that artistic flair, but it was always fan fiction. It was based off other things. It was I was always looking for them influences externally, like a lot of artists do. You know what I mean? But not the type of artist that I am now. And then I started meeting people like at St. John's. For anyone who doesn't know what St. John's is, it's like this shopping centre in Liverpool where all the emos kind of congregate. And there's a lot of cultural history on them steps of St. John's. There's more cultural history than we have time for in this podcast.
A lot of poems.
A lot of poems. And then I really started seeing institutional oppression. Then I really started seeing it. I really started seeing the people who were really failed by the curriculums. These people who were so smart, so funny, who I'd have such a laugh with, but you know, we'd go back to theirs and they'd live in really unideal living situations, you know, no food in the fridge, like unhygienic surroundings, you know, like the worst signs of poverty. Like, and it made me realize a lot. And then I'd always I started doing acting as well, because I liked pretending to be someone else. I really liked pretending to be someone else. But as I got older, I realized I didn't want to be an actor, because the stories they were telling on stage, what I was seeing around me, I was seeing the most And it's the same thing, like, although I was seeing these horrible things, we were still having a laugh, just like we were when I was on the estate growing up, always having a laugh.
There's
do you know
still
what I mean?
memories there.
There's a beautiful, funny memory, and I'll always have my funniest memories with them. But it is the situations these people are in is like, you know, it's something people won't be able to understand unless you see it firsthand, and it's something that I will never be able to explain to people, but it is what I feel passionately about. And what all my work centers around is like, who are the criminals?
Mm-hmm.
Because these people that I met in St. John's, a lot of them are in prison. A lot of them have family members in prison. I have family members in prison. I have very close personal loved ones in prison. You know, we fellas in prison. Like, but that doesn't mean that they're bad people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people don't understand the situations these people are put in.
Yeah.
Like, and then they
We're not
get
talking about the environments that have been created
Exactly.
to push people into whatever decisions they've had to make for survival.
Exactly.
It's the prison system is so skewed and so set up with the intention of failing, particularly people from working class backgrounds.
It profiles people. You know, I saw it on the Woody estate. So like Fliss, obviously, you know, he's in jail and I was with him, and he lived on the Woodchurch estate. We'd be walking around the Woodchurch estate. Every officer would know his name. They know his face. They know everything. They're looking for him for anything. You know what I mean? Because they want him. Because they profile you. Because and it's the same what happens with care kids, and it's the reason that out of young offenders, half of young offenders are care kids.
Yeah.
You know, 1% of the population are young offenders. Out of that, 0.5% of the population are youth offenders who are in care.
It's insane. Like,
that is nearly 1 in 100 people.
I've looked into, like, because I'm like, you know, like 31ish now, I've looked into like short-term caring for young people, and especially and like my background is like I was adopted as well, but at a very young age. But when I read that statistic, it makes absolutely no sense. Like, people really are set up to fail.
They are set to fail, because what happens when you're in care, and I know a lot about this, my family, obviously, they used to own a care home, didn't they? And then my dad's always, you know, being a care worker and stuff. And you know, if they're not in by a certain time, they have to ring the police. And it's like, then the police know their face.
Yeah.
They're getting them for things. What kids isn't allowed to stay out? What kids didn't stay out past a certain time? You have no autonomy over your life. You're getting profiled. You're getting called for this. You're saying you're attacking because you're kicking off. Every kid I was a nightmare. I was a nightmare. If when I was growing up, the bearsies got rang on me every time I kicked off. My record now, you know what I mean?
The thing as well is, like, a lot of with like young people, even ones who maybe are volatile, but like mainly like a lot of vulnerable young people have got mental health conditions or autism or things that police are not trained in any way, shape or form to interact with. So really, that's the last type of person you should be pairing those young people with. You know, they're not equipped to deal with emotional outbursts of any kind, really.
And this is what we mean when we say defund the police. You know, we need, you know, mental health trainers. We need people who are actually know how to deal with these situations, so that people aren't institutionalized and criminalized from a young age. Because who is that helping in the long haul?
Yeah.
Who is it helping in the long haul? Who is prison helping in the long haul, really?
Exactly.
You know, because it's not rehabilitation as much as they want to say. It's rehabilitation. It's not rehabilitation in any way, shape or form. And like, this is what shapes a lot of my work, you know, this idea of this framework and what people see and I guess that is what it is with my Scouseness and why I feel so strongly about it as well. It's because people see, like, I was on a Zoom call and we were talking to the artistic director of Northern Stage, and we had to think of questions that we wanted to approach them with. My question was, why would you want to work with me? And then someone else on the Zoom call pipes up and goes, because you'd shiv me if I didn't. And I go,
wow.
You've just said that because I'm Scouse. I've been dead nice. I've been, like, you know what I mean? I thought, like you've just, you know what I mean? Like, and this is this idea of who are the criminals? Like, why is that what you're associating with Liverpool? And even when you are associating with them, that with Liverpool, why aren't you why aren't you getting to the deep problems of what knife crime actually is?
Yeah.
It's a lack of safety.
And also, like, the amount of underfunding that takes place and, like, provision for young people is, like, insane in this city. Why aren't we considering the wider social context?
There's no youth services, and when there is youth services, they're so underfunded. You know, it's like, what do they expect young people to turn to? You know, there's like places like the Hive in the Whittle, which I think is amazing. I think it's incredible. They have like a recording studio. They have a kitchen for people to learn how to cook. Like they have boxing rings. They have like chill out zones. They like they have everything. They have like LGBT support things. They have everything.
Yeah.
And that is crime prevention. That is crime prevention. You know, given all we have in life is the things that make us happy. And if they're not nurtured at a young age, everyone has something that makes them happy, no matter how small, even if it's just playing games. Everyone has something that makes them happy, you know. And if that's not nurtured at a young age, what do you expect people to do with their lives? Where do you expect people to go from there? If people don't care about school, I didn't care about school, and I'm here on a podcast talking about my life experiences, and I've got to a point where I've been able to do that and have enough to be able to talk about. Do you know what I mean? Away from just
to provide for yourself through an art form as well, which is huge.
Exactly. But like, because like I always managed to nurture that within me, and my mum's an artist, so I always knew that was a viable option, even if it didn't mean that I'm skint, and even if it does mean that it's not great for making money, whatever. I knew that being an artist is a viable option, so I'd always had that exposure, so I had that privilege in that way. But these people who can't connect with what they love, with what they love,
who aren't given those first few stepping stones, really. That's all it takes.
Well, that's all and all it takes for a lot of these people is for someone to say, I care. A lot of these people have neglectful parents, have parents who, you know, don't really know what's going on, just think, oh, send them to school, don't really. But like, you know, it's not easy to be a parent, and a lot of people become parents without having any clue. No one really knows what they're doing in life anyway. So, you know, to try and raise a child, like
I couldn't do it.
I can't even look after myself. Like,
I wanted to kind of segue from that actually into talk to us a little bit about Kill the Bill.
Yeah.
With it being relative to our conversation, and also Reclaim Pride, because I feel like both of those things kind of have similar stories behind them, similar reasons.
They do. This is the thing, you know. All of it links back. All of it links back to the experiences that I've seen. Basically, Kill the Bill. For anyone who doesn't know what the Kill the Bill is, it's the police crime and sentencing bill that is being proposed, and it would basically make protests illegal, make it so traveller communities couldn't live as they currently can, even though their rights are getting taken away behind the scenes. If you want to know more about that, check out Drive to Survive. They're a really great organisation, really great for travellers' rights. And it would basically give more policing powers, more stop and search powers, more things like that. So it is a huge threat to all of our realities, really. And the NHS being privatised is a reality for us all. So if you feel like you're in a privileged position where you've never had to protest or whatever, you're probably someone who's used the NHS still. And this is something that we will have to be protesting about in the near future. So it affects us all. This Kill the Bill thing, this bill that's being proposed, it affects us all. Even if you feel like protesting is something that's way out your realm of what you usually do, it's not going to be at one point.
Can I say off that as well?
Yeah.
So, because I used to work for Amnesty International, which gets criticism sometimes, but ultimately what they stand for is some good things. And I remember learning about, I had training in peaceful assembly, the right to freedom of speech, and firstly, it's scary how many people don't know what their human rights are. But I remember it happened, our campaign took place around Brexit, because we said in leaving the EU, it meant the EU kind of human rights code. I can't remember the title of that, but that applied to us, that we worked off as the UK, was now no longer applied to us. And given the right government structure, that could be a great thing, because that's a time to refine what we've got, improve it, make it even better, because the EU one isn't perfect either, you know, as we know, but it's still a lot better than other continents and than other parts of the world. But so many people weren't considering that. And obviously with the Tories being in power, revoking that bill and creating our new one is terrifying. The right to freedom of speech is a fundamental human right. If we lose that, that's going to set this country back so far, like to the point where people can't even have candlelit vigils in the street if someone dies. It's not a world that we should be really scared about that, really.
We are, people don't realise, but we already live in a police state, because the idea of what policing should be is policing by consent. So but that's not what it is. You know, police use scare tactics, fear tactics. But you're right, Lindsay. Like, people don't realise this would confirm and basically put in writing that we live in a fascist state.
Yeah,
a lot of us
singing in the street will be
do.
illegal, dancing in the street, anything that you want to do to solidify, to make your stance known, it'll be gone.
Like, you know, I'm a big part of Kill the Bill, and they brought me and my good friend Chantal, who was amazing. For anyone who doesn't know Chantal, she's like a BLM, just every type of activist, really, because she's just an incredible person.
Really great organiser.
Yeah, incredible organiser, great speaker, just a fantastic human, and she's really funny and really lovely. So what else could you want? But we went down to the Kill the Bill protest outside Parliament, and she got told off for singing. They tried to give her a warning for singing, for singing, like, in the street.
Yeah. In some countries that, like, we consider to have really poor human rights, or like culturally as a society we consider poor, their freedom of speech and peaceful protest still exists. Like, it is a really scary prospect.
It honestly, it is absolutely terrifying. So to get involved with Kill the Bill, if you're not already, I would strongly advise emailing all your local MPs and getting them to make sure that every time it's voted on, we have as many votes on our side as possible. There's loads of really great Kill the Bill templates. If you just go on Kill the Bill Official on Instagram and check out the link tree in their bio, it's really loads of great ways to get involved, because it's really, really, really important, and it is a huge threat, and it's something that will be coming up. And there were some amendments that were getting added, and the night we had the protest outside of Parliament, we took a win there. We got amendments turned down. We took a win, but there's still a long way to go, and they'll keep putting it in different ways. But we just need to make sure this bill's not enforceable, even if it's passed. So yeah, just fight for all your local MPs and get them all bothered. Especially if you're someone who doesn't live in like Liverpool or somewhere that's like Labour, like, because it is a lot of Conservative MPs. So especially if you just say what you're worried about. Think about the things you care about. Like, just think about the things you care about, and think about how it could all be taken away in a second.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, like, even if you don't necessarily use your voice on a lot of other topics, I think this is one that's so universally important. Like, everyone has the right to voice their opinion about the government and the way things are run.
And that's what's been really great about the movement, to be honest, because it's like we've got to, for the first time, all kind of collaborate. You know, obviously when we do Kill the Bill, it's like people from BLM, it's trans rights activists, it's like Extinction Rebellion, it's Drive to Survive, it's everyone, you know, coming together, and that's what has made every Kill the Bill place like special. You know, it has made every protest we've had special, even though it's under the worst circumstances.
It really is the umbrella of solidarity, and then other things kind of shoot off that, but ultimately that's so important.
It really is.
Talk to us a little bit about Reclaim Pride, because I feel like there's similar motives behind those as well, with this kind of police state thought, but tell us a bit like what that's about.
So Reclaim Pride is basically how Pride in Liverpool is run, and how it is run in a lot of places, is this idea of a one weekend a year festival celebrating, for anyone who's listening, I've just done the little quotation marks, celebrating the queer community. And there's so many problems with this, because they spend so much money on a pop concert for cisgendered white gay twinks. And already throughout the year, that is what, when you think of Gay Town, it's a lot of venues that are cultured towards this idea of it's not queerness.
Yeah.
It's not queerness. It's not queerness. It's not radicalness. It's digestible,
palatable
gayness. And I believe that LCR Pride, and Reclaim Pride, I believe that an amalgamation of this is created in that weekend that people call and people refer to as Gay Pride. And it shouldn't be Gay Pride, because the amount of money that they get to put that on, when it could be going to so many other things like mutual aid, creative writing courses, retreats, things as easy as booking out swimming pools for trans people so they get the opportunity to swim. You know, really easy things to implement within the queer community that has no funding to it, because they give this money to LCR Pride and expect that to be enough. But it's not enough. I get things said to me all the time. As a queer person in Liverpool, we have such a rich community, but it is an unsafe environment. And there was a lot of conversation about it last year. And it was great there was a lot of conversation about it last year, but it's still happening. It's always happened. It's happened my whole entire life. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was like first like exposed to getting hate crimes as soon as I came out when I was like 14. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's always happened, and it was great that it was getting publicity and stuff last year. But where were LCR Pride?
Yeah.
Where were LCR Pride?
I think like the questions as well is like where funding is coming from, you know, like receiving like bank funding, for example, is criticised by a lot of people.
Yeah, this is something we were trying to, another point that we were doing with Reclaim Pride is they get a lot of their funding off Barclays. And Barclays, the number one fossil fuel provider for the whole of Europe. And when it comes to climate change, obviously that affects us all, but it disproportionately affects queer people because of, you know, the areas we populate, you know, our place in society, you know, like when it comes to stuff like accessing shelters and stuff, you know, it disproportionately affects queer people, like, and all marginalised people, you know, obviously, you know, people who live in countries with lower socio-economic statuses that are really affected by climate change the most, and it
will affect black communities, communities of colour, working class communities. Exactly. It is kind of like the antithesis of like what it's supposed to be celebrating.
So to take money off them is oxymoronic, because if you genuinely care about if you genuinely, because they're giving these money to these pride events and then going, there you go, there's our charity done. Look, we're good people. Slap our logo on that stage. Slap our logo on that leaflet. Slap our logo on that. Look, we're good people. Rather than think about how they are institutionally oppressing the entire world and the legacies that are to come.
If so with the idea of Reclaim Pride, what does that look like in practice? Like you said earlier about like when we were talking about like the reallocation of money and funds. So like for an example, like what would that look like?
So the model of Reclaim Pride would look like, so for example, LCR Pride don't just get funding off Barclays, they get funding off a lot of different organisations, off the council, off the government, you know, a lot of money. So we would like to take them funds and use it for education in the workplace, education in schools, education in venues, mutual aid funds for queer people who might be struggling getting taxis to job opportunities, who might not feel safe coming back from places, need taxis, need food, mutual aid funds. That's the model it would look like. So it would focus on education and first-hand help.
Yeah.
First-hand help, because that is what's needed.
I almost say it like Surf Pride's like a big river, and it's got like this huge bulk of funding because it goes towards this like heavily produced festival event, but then it's almost like these are the offshoots, like the little smaller things running off it, and that will kind of actually trickle into the community in a more substantial way.
Exactly. That trickles into the community. So queer people are being supported firsthand, directly, and we're also providing that education, because we're without that, you know, there's a difference between hatred and there is a difference between education.
being like
being
misinformed.
ignorance. Yeah. There's a big difference between like genuinely just being a nasty person and having actual hatred towards people and just being misinformed. And a lot of people are just misinformed. They are just misinformed. And then sometimes people will be misinformed, then say something, and then people will be like offended by it, and then it will push them further into that narrative, and that's how, you know, things like turfism and radicalization happen, and, you know, stuff like that.
Misinformed people as well just need an opportunity to ask the stupid questions in a room with someone who doesn't judge them and go, okay, well, here, this is what it is. And then often 9 times out of 10, if someone just feels seen for 10 seconds, they're able to shift their mindset. But they just want their point validated for 2 seconds, unfortunately so.
What I've realized as a person with a lot of intersectional identities is what you have to find out is people's intentions. You have to find out people's intentions. If someone misgenders someone, oh, sorry, I mean, move on. If someone misgenders someone on purpose, that's different. You know, and that's what people say to me a lot. They'll be like, oh, my friends like come out as trans and like I'm really worried, like and it's like, listen, no one's expecting you to do everything perfect. People are just expecting you to try and do the best you can. You know, transphobia is so ingrained in our culture that people do mess up sometimes. People say the wrong things sometimes. People word things wrong all the time. But at the end of the day, if your intentions are good, then that's all that you've had, the realm and the vocabulary and whatever to express yourself. So
I think like everyone makes mistakes, and queer people make mistakes. There's new languaging coming out daily. Mistakes. There's new ways to describe gender. There's new ways to describe sexuality. There's new ways to describe identity. The words that exist now will be totally different in 5 years' time, and we'll be Googling it going, oh my God, what does this thing mean?
Exactly.
You know, it's so hard to like, it can be hard to state. So I think making a mistake is so... just be humble about it. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, that's never going to happen again, move on. Like you said, it's so different to purposely misgendering someone, it's
completely different. And that's why we need to get the education in at these times, you know, that's not being done enough in Liverpool. And then people do, and there's some education being done in schools, not enough. Some education being done in schools, but it's not just about the schools. It's about the workplaces. It's about the venues. It's about where queer people, so they feel safe in all aspects of their life, not just in schools. You know what I mean? In schools, the most woke people I meet are the kids. You know, I do workshops with Gyro now that I used to go back to when I was young and stuff, and I love it. But I am learning new things all the time, you know, off them.
I love them so much.
They're the best.
They're the pleasure best to work with.
Like, honestly, they're just the best.
Tell us a little bit about, like, because, you know, it's so great to hear about this area of work, but tell us like what you're working on right now, like creatively, what are you excited about? You've got some stuff going on with the Barbican, a lot of theatre, so like what's kind of lighting you up right now?
So right now, the main thing I'm working on is a rap musical called Be Gay Do Crime, which is just a Scouse rap musical, which is basically what I was talking about before, growing up on the estate and stuff, and then seeing different estates, seeing different ways of life, and creating a microcosm of what that's like in the form of a Scouse rap musical. And
I love everything that it stands for. Like, it's probably been like my favourite theatre, the most exciting piece of theatre idea I've came across in a really long time.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So yeah, I'm doing that with some partners. I'm not sure I'm allowed to say what partners I'm working with yet. But the Barbican is one of them, because I am doing at the Barbican, they do this festival called Transpose Joy, where they pick the most exciting trans artists in the UK at the minute, and after a break of them doing Transpose, they've come back and they've picked me, which is really cool. So they're basically just giving me 20 minutes to do whatever I want, which is very, very exciting and also very terrifying for them, not for me. I was like, I want to show people who go to the Barbican something they've never seen before. And I've definitely done that. So I'm rapping for them, doing 3 different types of rap rap songs and putting like the big AD crime, institutional oppression, doing what I always do, which is make work satirical, but have it about really heavy things.
Yeah.
The way I explain all of my work is just like when you think you're telling a funny story and you're like, oh, this really funny thing happened to me, and then someone's like, are you okay? Like that sounds like really
and the room is silent.
But like people are you laugh and then you go quiet.
Yeah.
That's what I want. I like the laugh and the quiet.
I think like from seeing To Kill a Rose, How to Kill a Rose as well was like very similar to that. Like there's some lovely moments and it's also heart-wrenching, and I kind of hate it at the same time because of how deeply uncomfortable it is, because there's an innocence to it as well. One thing I wanted to talk about was like authenticity, you know, like seeing bits, like I've seen like a lot of your work and you know, seeing snippets of like what you're working on at the moment, and I really do feel like, you know, as someone who's known you and seen you grow up from the past couple of years, from where you first started.
When we first met, I was writing my first poems, you know.
Little Felix.
I know.
Like 2 months on tea or however, like it was just a completely different human. But I think where you've met now, like I think, and I said this to you, is like this intersection of like this rap inspired pieces or pieces that are rap versus kind of Scouse working class culture versus very aesthetic. Like there's so many different areas of your personality that you've melded together, and I feel like you've met at the point, this middle point now where you're like, that's me. That's pure authenticity. That's Felix. It's not too much one area or the other. You've really melted together everything about you, and it's came out, you know, as something like this really colourful, exciting piece. And like, do you feel like that? Do you feel like you've reached that point of authenticity?
I think I've finally found it. I think because I never chose to be an artist or an activist really. Like it was always something that was put on me, and the first time that it was put on me was because of my transness, and then I limited myself to that for a long time, and then I started to realize that my art and my transness actually don't have that much in, like my art doesn't really center around my transness whatsoever. Like
I feel that as well, like as someone who's queer and is, you know, experienced like a lot of fluctuations in my sexuality, my gender identity, the way I experience life. It's like actually it rarely comes into play in my writing unless I'm really challenging myself to write a piece that celebrates queerness. And I think there's something interesting in that actually. Like
there is like it's like exactly. And like the more I've kind of moved away from being limited by what I other people expect to hear from me, the more I've found my intersection. You know, I love rap. Like I've always loved rap. It's what I grew up around. It. That's why I started writing a Scouse rap musical, because when we always would, everyone would break out into rap, everyone would just be rapping here, you know, and that's why I wrote the rap musical, because that's what it was like. You know what I mean? There's just
not enough rap musicals about Scouse drug dealers in the world. So like you feel like you said earlier, like you filled a gap. You were like, well, there's not enough. So
I saw the space in the market and I said, you know what, I'm here, and I thought this is like, you know, something that's like really being under taps, and I've been writing it for a long time, but I didn't really think there was space for it. But it was like what we said to each other yesterday. It's like, if as artists we needed to ask for permission, art wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Art wouldn't exist, because we'd like have nothing to say if we were always asking someone else if we could say it.
And I think that a lot of art and like queer liberation is just existing unapologetically.
Exactly.
Like that's the whole point of it.
Exactly. And that's what, you know, for a long time as well, I was thinking, oh, I need to be family friendly. I need to do this. I need to do that. I need to censor myself. And now I've realized, no, I am an artist. I create words for people to listen to in my brain.
Yeah.
I will do the words that are in my brain wherever. With the Barbican, I'm not censoring myself. I'm not holding myself back. I do like a drill song, and then like at the end of it, you know, I say in it, I'm like, life's just words. We've got plenty. Got them stories that leave middle class white people empty. You know, a lot of people wouldn't say that at the Barbican when a lot of the audience will be middle class white people.
But I think as well, like your trajectory with your career, it has exploded the moment that you've embraced your full self. So, and really, even if you were, this is a note to like me and anyone, but like even if you do censor, right, even if you do think I'm gonna make this as easy to digest, someone's still gonna have a problem with it. You can't control, as soon as that piece has left your mouth or has entered the world, you cannot control any part about how someone's going to perceive that, whether they'll be offended, whether they'll have a problem. So you might as well just do it full Felix than halfway, because then you've betrayed yourself and there's still people that are out there who won't like it. So really there's no benefit to any of us dulling ourselves down.
There's no one benefits from it. You just have to live unapologetically and create the art you want to create. Because at the end of the day, if you wanted to work for someone else, we'd all be in 9 to 5s. We'd all, you know what I mean? We'd all be like doing, I don't even know. No, I can't even think of an example of a normal job.
You can be a copywriter or a marketer without and write on behalf of other people if you wanted to do that.
We're artists. So we need to make the art that we want to create and we want to say and we want to hear come out our mouths, because no one else will.
Yeah.
We're the only one who has our voices, so you may as well just use it, because what else can you do?
Literally. And what else is there to do?
What else is there to do?
Yeah. Tell us a little bit, like, who inspires you? Like, where do you get your influences from? I feel like there's across a huge range of styles and genres, but...
Well, I've been talking to Travis Alabanda a lot recently, because there's someone who inspires me a lot, because they are like another, person of colour, trans person who has made it in the theatre industry. And that's really hard to do, because the theatre industry is run by a bunch of middle class, rich or white people.
It's very rooted in like tradition and culture and like a lot of old fashioned values as well, I've noticed.
Exactly. So it's really hard to break that mold. So I always saw Travis as a massive inspiration. I've like had the privilege to like be able to talk to Travis a lot recently about our experiences, because like I find a lot of similarities in my story to them, and I definitely find them a massive inspiration, not just for their amazing, incredible work that they create, but for the way that they've got there. And I understand that, like, they did Transpose Joy like years ago, and they said that they found it funny because they sent a similar email, because I sent this big email to them and I was like, oh, I'm really stressed, like I'm doing well, but I've never felt worse and I've never felt more of an imposter. And so they are a huge inspiration to me, and they said they found the conversation cathartic as well, so that was great. And for another monumental artist in my life is like Danez Smith, for sure.
Yeah.
Because
Danez Smith writes like stunning, like completely stunning.
And it's another, trans person of colour who was like, you're listening to me say these words, I'm gonna say them. Whether you buy it or not, I'm gonna say it. Like garbage. Because we obviously met on the Queer Bodies course, didn't we? And that was the first time when they showed us that I probably ever listened, and I ever actually broke through and influenced my own work. Like
there's something about taking up space within that of like, no, this is what I'm doing. Like, this is what I'm writing.
You're going to listen to me. I have these things to say. You're going to listen to me and you're going to like it.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I don't care.
Yeah.
And for me, when I read that, I kind of thought, right, yeah, sit now. Sit now. I'm writing what I want to write. I don't care. I don't care if it's I want to make people feel uncomfortable. This is with the Barbican, with everything I'm doing, with a lot of the institutions that I'm working with now, and some even more mental ones that are coming up. It's like, I will not censor myself. I want people to squirm. I want usual theatre goers to squirm. I want people to be confused. I want people to go, what? You know what I mean? If you can't understand it, that's completely out. If you can't understand my work, that just shows how much you can't understand about the world.
And that's on you to do. That's your work now.
Exactly. I've done all I can do. All I can do is tell my story. If you can understand it from me telling my story, and yeah, that's great that you can see it from the outside a bit and have a bit more of an insight. But if you can't understand it at all, that says even more. That says even more. I learn more about the people who can't relate with my work on any level or whatsoever, and can't even feasibly understand it, because I'm like, wow, you're that privileged.
Yeah, like, wow, that person exists.
That person actually exists.
Whoa.
Yeah.
How has it been since transitioning over to writing pieces that really are rap? Like, have you felt your voice change, your expression change?
I think so. I've definitely found my own voice with it, because I think for a long time, you know, I was kind of trying to still fit in this idea of poetry, and like I am still. I what I write is still poetry, but poetry and rap are the same thing. Poetry and rap are the same thing. They're the same thing.
I think if you're a poet and you don't listen to like rap, hip hop, grime, you're doing yourself such a disservice, because there's so much to learn.
They are the same thing.
It's the bedrock of what we do,
exactly.
essentially.
And you know, usually it is like, you know, rap is like for the streets, and then poetry is like for middle class people. But we need to like stop that division. You know, because we're all doing the same thing, and a lot of the time, like, poetry is about like the oppression. You know what I mean? And like it's just the same. It's the same thing. And then when I kind of started embracing that, and then leaning into a bit more of like, you know, the piss taking that a lot of rappers do, and stuff like that, but then still being able to bring it back with like poetic moments or whatever, then finding that balance has really just unlocked so much potential within my work, because I listen to so much rap, you know, there's so much influence. When I see my memories, I hear the rhythms of them, I hear the tapping on the phone screens, I hear the clicking of the lighters, I hear the patterns of conversation, I hear that, and then that's how I create work, you know, based on that, based on the things I hear. And then based on like a visual frame of what I see, and I work backwards from that.
I think you're similar to me, where sound is so important. Rhyme, rhythm, the structure of a piece. Like, I care so deeply about how it lands on people's ears, and that's why I think I would always prefer to perform and like speak my words out loud than go down the publishing route. Not that that's not an option, you can't do both, but it's just as a preference, it's always having people hear it, having people hear the tunes. Like, who are you listening to at the moment, like musician wise? Rap artists, grime.
Well, I'm made up with this Packs and Potions, this hazy stuff.
Anytime I hear it, I'm so excited.
I'm not being funny, because like I grew up in Tocky, do you know what I mean? Unknown T and Digga D, they're two of my favourite artists of all time. Digga D right now is my most frequently listened to.
And doing so well as well right now.
And you know, and for them to be like Liverpudlian bad bitch and elegant, and like, you know, me skate from talk stuff, like that stuff I never would have imagined, you know, listening to these rappers a few years ago. I never would have heard them rapping on a tune with Hazy, like who's like 17 from like Anfield, you know what I mean? Like, it's sick, like, and like, so I'm really vibing with that. Like, I'm made up that that's number one in the charts right now,
honestly. And I remember saying to you, like, I think before, but like when I went and lived in Birmingham, I came across like Lab TV and all of those things that were from years ago,
and Trends,
and being so excited and being like, oh my god, like listen, and showing friends at the time, and having people from like London and Birmingham being like, Scouse shouldn't rap, and it's like, how can you? But I feel like recently there's been a breakthrough where it's like that's just been a lot more accepted throughout the whole country, as opposed to just Liverpool putting people up. And the artists that our city have got are amazing.
Amazing. And I love a Scouse accent. You know, when I'm working down anywhere else, when I'm getting all these places, I just miss a Scouse accent. Like, the feeling I get when I'm walking into Liverpool Lime Street and I like bump into someone and I was sorry mate, you know, there's just nothing better. I go down to Euston and like, as people, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I think I'll behave, shut up.
Having someone in a shop or a taxi call me hon, like straight away, alright babe, I just love it. I just love it. And I've struggled with this podcast as well, really, because I've really wanted to get people from further afield, but I'm also like, the list, I'm bumping people further and further down, because I'm like, there's so many people in this city that I would like to feature. There's so much talent. This city is teeming with talent, so like, why stray? And it's important to engage with people from further afield, but I just really want to provide a platform for local Scouse artists who are doing it and out there every day.
It's so important.
Tell us a little bit about like what the future is, like what are you working on, what are you most excited about? You know, I feel like we haven't really touched on How to Kill a Rose either, but like just tell us about the future, what you're looking forward to.
I'm really BK Do Crime right now. That is like my passion project, like because like I see a lot of longevity with it, because it brings in a lot of different types of institutional oppression. It brings together, you know, the like it's all working class oppression, but it's like queer working class oppression, person of color oppression, being a gay kid oppression, deaf oppression, Eastern European oppression, overlooked maternal figures oppression. You know, it explores a lot of different things, because the thing for me, what I struggled with theatre is like, and I know a lot of people, is when I was looking for a monologue, I couldn't find any monologues. Couldn't find a single monologue that I resonated with.
Yeah.
And they were like, has to be from a published play, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I can't find any monologues. And that's when I started writing How to Kill a Rose, which was my last play. And because I didn't want it. How to Kill a Rose basically was a play that I started writing when I was 15. And it is about unhealthy relationships, toxic relationships, and how it goes unnoticed, because usually manipulators and abusers are the most charming, funny people, and you don't really realize the decline into abuse. So when I said I was writing a play about toxic relationships, a lot of people didn't expect it to be a rom-com, but it was
in an uncomfortable way.
In an uncomfortable way, yeah. People were laughing, but then you hear people laughing at the jokes and then going realizing the situation that it's in, and that's exactly what I want.
To watch as well. I would say, like, just being a spectator in that room was like very confronting. Really,
and that's what a lot of people found, and then and a lot of people say as well that, like, they have friends that people have said certain things about, and they've thought, oh, they'd never be like that with me, but then they realized how there's so many different layers to personalities that, what I mean? And that was what I really wanted. That was my main goal with it. You know what I mean? But what I also wanted to do was like create, and I'm actually getting that published. I'm not allowed, I'm allowed to say who it's with. Yeah. I need to ask my agent what I can say and what I can't say.
We can add this in post-production if it changes.
Yeah,
it's a while.
Yeah, it's fine. And I'm actually getting How to Kill a Rose published. So I'm really happy with that, because I wanted to create monologues for people who don't see themselves in theatre. Because theatre should be about telling our stories. Should be about us having a platform where we can break the mold and be honest. And it's not like that. That's not what the theatre industry is whatsoever. We need so much permission to tell our stories. We need this, we need that, we need this, we need that, we need whatever. So
it's wild that to tell a story that's slightly different to the mold is considered revolutionary, when really you're just existing as a person and just literally repeating verbatim what happened to you, and people are like, whoa, this challenging, disruptive, and it's like, it's just life. Like, this is just what happens to a lot of people, actually.
I'm not much of a writer, I'm more of a channeler. Yeah. I can only write what I know. I see the things around me and write based on that. But at the end of the day, like, how is it theatre if it's not shaking the ground up a bit? I think that is the difference between, if you want to watch something that's digestible, if you want to watch something that's that, watch a sitcom on your TV. Yeah. If you want to go out and take yourself to the theatre, suspend your disbelief in a room with all these people, prepare to have your attitudes on things changed.
I think, like, theatre and spoken word are so similar in that they've always been a tool to provoke, to ask questions, and almost a call to action at times as well, as like, well, this is something we won't stand for anymore. And I'm happy anytime I see it revert back to those roots. With spoken words especially, it's quite easy to see people using it to motivate and create change. And theatre, there are some great theatre companies and great pieces, inspiring pieces of work, but there's still ultimately like a very whitewashed industry, middle class, cisgendered, able-bodied people on stage, so anytime people do that, it's so exciting. Talk to us a little bit about, like, I feel like you've got your stage persona, you have St. Juicy, which is a newer addition, and like, has it helped you with, like, being yourself on stage? Like, has it brought you joy? Because I feel like it really has to watch.
It really has, because I think, I've been Felix Mufti since I was that trans young person doing comic relief videos when I was 14. I've been Felix. The name Felix Mufti has come out of so many institutionals, and has been on so many.
It's been in a lot of people's mouths.
It's been in a lot of people's mouths for a long time, for a lot of different reasons, and it's not always how I want to be represented. And I've kind of got this persona, St. Juicy, now, which I kind of rap and dance under and stuff like that. And I don't really talk when I'm Saint Juicy either. He's got this kind of vampire, bad bitch, don't talk to me, don't come at me energy.
The nails have really helped.
The nails
if you're not,
always,
if you're not watching the video.
Really helps. Yeah, I've got big long nails on that I can't do absolutely anything with. but because I'm a weak man. But like
watching you try and open your moisturizer has been
everything is stress. Everything is stress. I can't type it. It takes me long enough to reply to messages anyway. Now I'm like that. Oh God. But I don't have autocorrect on either because I don't like people telling me that I'm spelling words wrong. Who decided that I'm spelling words wrong? I think the patriarchy is the one spelling words wrong, personally.
Agreed.
But what was I saying? Saint Juicy.
We've been going for a while.
Saint Juicy.
Yeah, how has it been?
So yeah, no, it's been really liberating, and I think if you are feeling really uninspired with your work and you feel like you've become disconnected from the reasons that you started to create art, it is really helpful to create a persona. And if you want to say some things that you might feel a bit unhinged, if you want to kind of disrupt things a bit, just create a stupid name and just start getting people to call you it.
I have honestly thought about like using mine because like my birth name was Star Mercer, and I think like I was like it would change quite early on, and I'm like, but Star is such a better name for a poet on stage than Lindsay.
But you should though, because it's not even just about like what the name is, it's what it stands for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It is so liberating just to hear them, like even when they're like Saint Juicy, you know what I mean? Because then I'm like, no one has an expectation now. I've created that expectation in the last few years, and yeah, it's a good expectation, and you know, I have no doubts about how people perceive my art because obviously I've had a lot of opportunities, whatever, blah blah blah. But just to hear that kind of distinguish and like have an opportunity to kind of do something that people aren't expecting, it's just fun. It's just fun.
Yeah.
And I'd recommend it to anyone who's like at a bit of a rut, maybe struggling a bit, maybe a bit like, oh, I don't really know what I'm doing. Because you don't have to know what type of artist you are. You don't have to put yourself in a box. You don't have to say, oh, I'm a spoken word artist who writes about blah, 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 blah. Blah blah blah. No, you can just write about anything you want. Just do whatever you want, because like what else can we do?
Like, I'm a human who takes up space.
Exactly. I'm a human that takes up space. You're watching me right now.
Yeah.
You're listening to me right now. I'm going to tell you what you want to hear. When I do my free writing workshops with the young people, one of the prompts is, I want everyone to know. I want everyone to know. What do you want everyone to know? What do you want everyone to know? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I wish people had seen. You know what I mean? Like, and then that can really help you find out, and you don't have to ever share them things with anyone, but then prompts always really help me to know what I want people to see in the world.
One thing I wanted to end on, just on that note of like that persona idea as well, was like, because I feel like you've experienced a lot of visibility recently, and we don't really have time to get into it in a level, but like knowing that can be challenging to navigate, you know, because it comes with it a lot of attention, opinion, but also challenge and pressure. But like, I wonder if having Saint Juicy now will help you create a slight distinction between like Felix, Faye, and Saint Juicy, who's on stage and has that visibility,
for sure.
You know?
For sure. This is the thing. It's like, I do not want to be called a role model a lot of the time. Like, you know, I like the other day at my St. Juicy performance, like at the end, I just said, stop calling me an influencer. I am a terrible person. I have shaky hands. Like, you know, there's this idea, especially if you're queer, especially if you're breaking the mold, to sense yourself and like be a role model and be this. And I might be a role model in the way that I'm unapologetically me, and people are inspired by that. But that doesn't mean that I have to be this perfect idea, glamorous, shining. Oh yeah, do everything right. No, sometimes I'm 21. Sometimes I am too hungover to go to that thing. Sometimes I will have not been home for 3 days and I'm not unclean to wear for that a really important event to go to. You know, we're young. We're not perfect people. And we can't be expected to be.
There's more than one way to be an artist. There's more than one way to be a trans person. There's more than one way to be an activist. So, you know, I think it's dangerous when we hold people accountable but when we hold people in such kind of narrow ideas of how they should be and perceive. Hit us with another poem before we go, and then tell everyone where they can find you, and, you know, anything coming out that we can keep an eye on.
Fab. I will. So this is a poem. This is what I've been talking about recently, and it's one where I've kind of let myself do whatever I want, and I don't usually get to do poems like this because I don't usually feel like there's the space for them. But now I realise there's never going to be the space for them if people like me don't create the space. So this poem's called What the Trap Looks Like. In the day, you don't know what the trap looks like, trying to move him from the couch to the bed, while the world starts their 9 to 5, picking up newspapers, see the county, but don't read between the lines. You don't know what it's like, wondering if his pastimes will let him survive. Tucked in his trackies, then I took him into bed. Don't worry, babe, you've had a hard day of graft. How about lay back, get some head? You don't know what it's like to check someone you don't know's name still but even, then hearing Skengdo AM mad about bars under his breath. All of a sudden he's speaking French. Hear you grind your teeth in the night. I'll just keep mine clenched. Cause you know I hold it down. You can trust me when you're not around. But through the phone I can't hear the sound of your breath when I look at you that way. You can't see it in my eyes that I mean it when I say I'll stay. You don't know what it's like when the sun's starting to rise, trying to get ready in mirrors, still racked up with lines, scrambling round empty cans to find a clean pair of socks, trying to clear my faded mind among nights into mornings of chaos. I feel like going home, but I don't know where that is. I feel like going home, it's with you, but I can't turn myself in. I feel like going home, but I don't know where that is. I feel like going home, it's with you, but I can't turn myself in. I feel like going home, but I don't know where that is. I feel like going home, it's with you, but I can't turn myself in. He's worried because he's too fucked to fuck me, but I'm not asked when he's whispering in my face that he saw stars freckle my cheeks. Now he's followed them, got lost. We're trapped under his unwashed bed sheets. You don't know what it's like to wake up in the trap. One of his hands been in a stale bag of Doritos all night, the other tightly grabbing my ass. You don't know what it's like to wake up in the trap. I know our days are running out, but no need for them to go so fast.
It's so beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's such like a sadness, but such a romance as well. Like I always feel like that in your pieces. Like,
Necromantic.
There's a tenderness amongst the chaos, and I really resonate with it. Tell everyone where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram at Felix Mufti. If you want to see my poems, Twitter at Felix Mufti. If you want to see, kind of keep up to date with whatever I'm doing, or my Twitch stream at Felix Mufti, where I have a series called I Chaotically Play The Sims, and just have Twitch emailing me all the time telling me I can't do that.
I love that. That got a little shout out on promotion.
Yeah, honestly, I'm gonna start promoting it because it's my favorite thing, and if I can make money off me sitting in bed playing The Sims, then I've made it really.
My dream in life is to make money
in
off
it.
playing
Exactly.
The Sims,
Then I would no longer actually have to live in real life and subscribe to the pressure society because I can vicariously just live through The Sims instead.
The patriarchy doesn't have to exist on The Sims, if you say so.
So if you can just all support that, I would be really grateful. But yeah, Instagram, Twitter, and follow Reclaim Pride on Instagram, Reclaim Pride LVR, Reclaim Pride LVR, and on Instagram, Transcend Theatre as well, because my theatre company are doing bits and we're going to be doing up bigness soon, and I also have a monthly melodic distraction show, so tune into that if you want to hear some chaos on a Friday afternoon.
Felix is honestly going to be bigger than you are now, I think, in the next couple of years, so thank you. You've been a pleasure to have on. I think if you're listening, you understand why we've gone for like a longer slot than normal, because I know there's so much to say. I still feel like we could have gone on for ages.
We could, honestly, Lindsay, we could be here for 24 hours. We could be here for 24 hours.
Maybe that's next year's season, just a 24-hour podcast episode. Like and subscribe if you want to see that. Thank you so much for sticking in. Rate and review the podcast, and I'll be back with another one soon.
Support, big up, salt water, big up.
So that concludes today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please go and show our guests some love. All their information will be in the description box below. And I think today's was a really, really great one. Please like and subscribe on YouTube and do all of the things. Leave us a nice review on your podcast sites. You can follow us over on Instagram at Saltwater Poetry, or you can follow my personal one, which is Lindsay Writes Poems. Thank you so much for all of the love, and I will see you all at the next one.